Welcome back. Today we're playing with 8 Gay Werewolves. Yes, you heard that correctly. This was originally going to be a continuation of the Desert Werewolf playthrough, but I decided, why not spin it off into its own series? So now we have, can medieval gay werewolves survive Rimworld? As you've probably noticed, my track record with medieval Overhaul is less than stellar, so this time I'm playing with Cassandra Classic on Blood and Dust, mainly because every run so far seems to end with a rock gun and slaughtering the entire colony, or some equally stupid disaster wiping everyone out. But maybe, just maybe, 8 gay weremice will be enough to break the cycle, or at least, the very least, make it entertaining when everything goes inevitably wrong. I pick a dark forest as our starting biome because we want a challenge. Our mice, round ears, sycamore, suppletail, whitepaw, mace, sorrel, basil and burrow digger, yes that's gay lycanthropic rodents. They even come with their own pet giant cavies, so a quick pen goes down. After that I start planning individual homes for everyone. Since they're werewolves I'm not too worried about early raids. We can actually afford to take our time building, or at least until the game spews out an impossible to kill monster. Construction actually goes pretty quickly. Turns out most of the mice are handy with a hammer. I set up a campfire because with 8 weremice the food stockpile is going to disappear in record time. 3 are assigned to cooking, which should slow down the starvation for at least a while. There's a death stinger nest nearby, and the colonists keep running from it, but I'm not too concerned. In fact, I leave it alone. Death stingers are great for thinning out merchant caravans. Free loot without effort. Sometimes when you play Rimworld, it's all about knowing when not to intervene. By the time half the colony has a roof over their heads, a mad squirrel shows up. I'm pretty sure wolves eat squirrels, so when this one charges at the colony, I have Basil, Whitepaw and Suppletail transform. It's over quickly, the squirrel is downed in seconds, Whitepaw and Basil wander off, but Suppletail sticks around to eat the squirrel's heart right there on the spot. The weremice are off to a strong, if slightly unhinged, start. Then Cassandra decides it's time for a blight. Wonderful. Half the potato plants are gone overnight, which means 8 weremice now get to live off whatever they can scrounge from the forest. That goes well. I assign 2 mice to clear the blighted crops quickly as possible, mostly to stop the spread, and partly out of spite for Cassandra. With any luck, we'll recover some before starvation actually comes. Next up, a raid from the Pact of Inuas. It's just one tribesman armed with a steel knife, and they probably most likely want to die because they attack immediately. I set up 6 mice on defensive, Mace ready to shoot, not that it matters, the others transform into werewolves and rip the raider apart before Mace even gets to shoot it. With all the mice finally housed, I start work on a proper stone fortress. Not just a wall, but a defensive home. Easier to defend and much nicer to look at. Eventually this will be the colony's outer wall, assuming we live long enough to finish it. Meanwhile, one of the local trolls decides to kill our giant cavy carby bean. We're not even going to try to save it. Trolls regenerate so quickly, so the only thing a rescue attempt would accomplish is a game over. Sometimes you just have to let nature win. Next comes the quest, the Ambush Knight. He's fleeing for his life from a man-hunting squirrel. Not exactly the bravest of knights, still, we accept the quest. The honor goes to Suppletail because why not? The squirrel arrives and is immediately dispatched without so much as a scratch on anyone. The knight is safely sent on his way in the shuttle, and just like that, Suppletail holds the easiest noble title in Rimworld history, medieval heroism at its finest. Cassandra apparently wasn't just satisfied with one deranged rodent, she immediately follows with a mad rat. I'm not sure if it's some kind of species betrayal for a wermouse to kill a rat, but we'll let ethics slide here. The rat sprints straight into Suppletail's new throne room and tries to assassinate our only noble. Suppletail kills it easily, then goes back to bed. Then comes a real test, a raid from the Red Wombat Oro. 5 Anthro Raiders, 1 in plate armor. The first group that actually looks threatening. I draft everyone, leaving Suppletail, Basil and Mace in ranged mode while the others transform. 3 raiders go down before the rest try to flee. But I'm not feeling generous. The weremice chase down the plate-armored raider and finish him off too. It's official. The colony is starting to look powerful. Well, what's this? Mace and Sorrel have just become the colony's first lovers. Apparently, Mace called Sorrel an angry house and that did the trick. Strange. I quickly throw together a double bed in the second fortified house and assign it to the happy couple. They will get mood buffs now and one less reason for mental breaks. Next up, a raid from the lack of kinship. Tribesmen attacking from multiple directions. There's a lot of them, but quantity hasn't really worked out for the raiders so far. I transform the melee mice and keep Mace, Suppletail and Basil unranged. The first wave gets shredded, then the trio pivots to shoot down the straggler trying to flank from behind. End of a clean victory, the Were Mice continue the streak of making even multi-pronged assaults look like a minor inconvenience. With a burst stretch apiece, I get to work expanding the fortification wall. Eventually this will double as a fermentation room, because if 8 Were Mice can't have regular access to alcohol, then what's the point of medieval luxury? Next, I set up a smithy in the room to the south. It's time to move past just having normal clothes and start churning out plate mail, because the colony might need this to survive long enough to die of old age instead of from raiders or manhunters. Cassandra's next gift is a mad boomerlope, because nothing says base improvement like an animal that explodes when agitated. Basil and Suppletail take it down, but rather than finish it off, I send Sycamore to tend to its wounds. Of course, peace is short-lived. Basil immediately goes into a lycanthrope berserk, kills a cougar and then turns on Mace. Suppletail decides to join in and berserks as well, eventually downing Basil. To restore order, I have White Paw down Suppletail. It's not pretty, but it works. Basil now lacks an ear, but that's on him. Next, Cassandra sends a manhunting pack of Timberwolves, because the only thing better than a rabid boomerlope is a swarm of actual predators. There's a lot of them. I draft the mice and transform everyone except Basil and Suppletail, both still recovering from the last outburst. The fight is brutal. Mace loses both ears, Soul gets downed, and everyone except Sycamore, conveniently the best doctor, takes some damage. We win technically, but now Mace is dealing with the miserable earless Mousekin debuff. At least Soul, ever the supportive boyfriend, might be able to cheer him up, or at least pretend he can hear him. To address the sudden ear shortage, I set up a seamstress bench. The plan is to craft some cloth ears for the afflicted Mousekin, though predictably nobody has the skill to make them, so I assign Round Ears to start practicing crafting and intellect. Maybe with enough effort, he'll eventually be able to give his fellow colonists the idea that they have ears when they don't. A raid arrives, mostly ranged enemies this time. I draft everyone and send them straight at the raiders. Turns out, bows and crossbows don't work well at point-blank range when you're being mauled by Were Mice. They start to flee after enough casualties, but I miss the fact they're coming from multiple sides. Brewer gets shot dead as he's leaving his house. In true Rimworld spirit, I have the colony avenge him by chasing down the fleeing raiders and making sure none of them get away. They beat the rest of the raiders to death, deserved. I make what I assume is a reasonable choice, cut down a great tree to extend the walls. Rimworld, of course, punishes logic. A dog Shrat spawns, it immediately downs Basil and White Paw, just as Round Ears finally gets the skill to make replacement ears. Wonderful. The Scrat then kills Striped Tail. Apparently this unkillable forest nightmare just exists to punish players who try to do anything. In medieval Overhaul, where medieval means not realistic at all. Every fucking time. Adding to the chaos, Striped Tail's Rock's pet goes berserk and mauls Mace, downing him too. I send Round Ears to clean up that and kill the rocks. Hopefully we can manage to survive this so that he can use the ears for good, but I don't see that happening. The dog Scrat kills a boomerlope, and for a brief moment I find that hopefully the fire might take care of our problem, but Rimworld decides this is the perfect time for rain, so the colony's last hope fizzles out. The Scrat then downs Sycamore. The fucking entire colony's being murdered by this shit. As Sol is busy tending to Round Ears, the Scrat turns and downs Sol as well. Just accept that everyone's gonna die. Thanks game, we didn't even survive for more than 28 days. Super great fucking forest. I try to get Basil to try and escape, but the creature hunts down round ears while he's resting and downs him too. The Shrat then turns its attention to the giant caviars and kills them all. For a creature supposedly protecting the forest, it certainly enjoys killing the local wildlife. Truly, medieval overhaul logic at its finest. Just when it looks like the end, a merchant caravan arrives. Sorrel manages to get back up, but the dog Shrat immediately slaughters the entire caravan. At this point, I'm left wondering why anyone thought it was a good idea to add an overpowered, unkillable monster to a medieval fucking overhaul mod. Nothing says medieval like having a living tree that can't fucking die. Finally, the Shrat kills Sorrel. That's game over. I'm not even going to bother continue with a man in black. Sometimes Rimworld isn't about losing graceful, it's about knowing when the modders just create unbalanced shit to fuck with your colony, and not when due to play the unbalanced mod no more. In fact, it's not the end. If you're still watching at this point, congratulations, you get bonus content. This next segment is from an abandoned playthrough I never finished. This time, we have 3 fish, Rick, Porluon, and Whistler. Yes, fish with her. Why do they have her? Well, that's just Rimworld for you. They've been whisked onto an island with nothing but silver and pemmican. Not the best survival odds, but frankly after the last one, it's probably better. The base goes up fast, though base is generous. What the fish actually get is a cramped barracks and a patch of dirt for potatoes, bare minimum, but that's still luxury for them. Things get interesting almost immediately though. Porluon charms Whistler with a story about facial hair, which is strange given that they're both fish and presumably hairless. Either way, it works. Whistler is now Porluon's lover. I take the opportunity to whip out their single beds and put in a double bed. Construction continues for the fish. I start work on a separate house for Rick, mostly so that he doesn't have to listen to the 2 fish going hard into each other at night. Next, the colonists build a large storeroom that doubles as an outer wall. Efficient if nothing else. I throw together a quick trap corridor at the top of the base just in case raiders get creative. Finally, Rick's room is finished. It's clean but basic. Sometimes that's all you ask for in Rimworld. A few walls and a roof, and some peace and quiet away from orgasms. Then it's time for a quest, and yes, it's another night. I accept. He's fleeing from a rat, which is about par for the course, because the island is guarded by death stingers. The knight also ends up running from them too. It's not a great look for chivalry. Meanwhile, I lose track of the rat's actual location. At one point, we hear it off screen, then suddenly it's right there. Rick and Porluon step in to finish it off. Both get bitten, probably because their melee skills are abysmal, and let's face it, fish aren't really known for their thick skin. Then we get a raid, a lone mousekin with a blunderbuss. Rather than risk my fish, I simply zone everyone away from the Death Stinger hive and wait. As expected, the raider blunders right into the hive and dies to the insects. Just as the body hits the ground, we do get a notification. A wanderer wants to join. We accept Val into the colony. He enters from the only side of the island without Death Stingers, which, honestly, puts him a lot more intelligently above the last raider. Maybe this one will last more than 5 minutes here. I quickly build a room for Val. No point letting him share a barracks or a pair of musky fish. While I'm at it, I start adding barricades around the base to beef up security. A quick check of the Death Stinger nest reveals a surprise. It looks like a merchant wanted too close earlier, so there's some loot up for grabs. Death Stingers might be a nuisance, but at least they're good for free loot. With the barricades mostly finished, the colony looks safer than it has any right to. Just in time too, because another raid arrives. The outcome is the same as before. The 2 raiders run straight into Death Stingers and die almost immediately. Next up, a mad boom rat. It goes straight for Val, knocks him out, and I scramble the rest of the colony to deal with it. The boom rat explodes, setting Porluon on fire. Then we move to patch Val up, except he immediately goes into a daze and leaves his bed. Surprisingly, Val manages to recover while still wandering, eventually coming back to his senses. Then another raid hits. 2 mousekin, one with a blunderbuss and the other crossbow. One raider manages to clear out the Death Stinger hive, but instead of attacking our base, he walks into another hive and gets downed. The other raider never even makes it that far. Val decides to go on a hornet hunting binge. Naturally, he chooses to do this by wandering straight into the Death Stinger hive and trying to eat the honey right in front of them. Predictably, he gets downed. At this point, I decide to cut my losses and banish him. It's a sensible option. A -6 debuff for banishment is a lot better than the -10 we'd get if he had died. Sometimes you've just got to let natural selection of Rimworld AI do its work. Naturally, this is where I call it. Most of the footage from this playthrough ends here anyway. I hope you enjoyed this small bonus segment. Until next time.